Welcome to the Return to Service podcast, where we interview experts in the MRO and GSE spaces to share insights that help you more effectively run your business or operation. Today, we're joined by Suresh Narayanan, the CEO of Jets MRO in Dallas, Texas. So we dive into a handful of items. We talk about the maintenance technician turnover rates in shops and how they're addressing it, as well as what he sees broken with the quoting process in the MRO space and what they're doing to address that at their shop. They're opening a new location here in a few months, so please check that out. Visit their website. We'll have their information in the show notes below. Without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Suresh from Jets MRO. Suresh, thanks for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. So today we're here with Suresh Narayanan, the CEO of Jets MRO in Dallas, Texas. Suresh, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I definitely want to cover what Jets MRO is on the interview. But the reason why I reached out was you put out the post a few days ago about technician turnover, and you mentioned that you almost see it as a bigger problem than the overall arching, conversation around the technician shortage. So let's dive into it. What are you seeing on that front? And then let's take it from there.
Well, I think the turnover issue isn't talked about enough. And so I like to talk about what we can always do better and how to disrupt the industry. And I think the business jet maintenance market has a lot of things that we're not talking about enough. We've all heard about the labor shortage, and that is a problem, getting new mechanics into our industry, commercial, military, and biz jet. But as a former operator where I had a fleet of aircraft, I saw this firsthand, and this is how I came up with the idea to start Jets MRO. I dug into why a lot of our aircraft that go into maintenance are coming out late and at higher cost than we expected. And everyone was blaming inflation or a labor shortage. And it really was a mechanic turnover issue as much as it was a labor shortage. And what I mean by that is, mechanic turnover rates right now are between 40 and 50%, 40 to 50%. So almost 1 in 2 mechanics may be gone in a given year from an organization to go to another one or leave the industry. And that's a huge problem, because if an airplane goes into an MRO for maintenance and you have a mechanic who's been there a long time, maybe knows the airframe really well, he or she takes 20 hours to do a task, and that's efficient. And then that person leaves, and then a new person comes in the next week to do the same task that may not have the same type of experience or comfort in the organization and takes double the amount of time. Well, guess what? Us as the operator don't know this, but we're paying for that extra time because it's on time and materials usually, and our aircraft is late. So it's not just a shortage issue. The turnover issue is affecting the operator immensely.
How did you, when you started looking at that, rather than just accept it for face value, that it's inflation, that it's a shortage, how did you figure out that it was this turnover rate was the issue?
I asked the question. I started digging into, when we were an operator, we had 40, 50 aircraft that we operated. So we had a lot of aircraft going in and out of different maintenance organizations, whether it was an OEM or big MROs. And our checks were large scale, multi-million-dollar checks. So these were big impacts on our business. So I realized they were fundamentally never on time and always over budget by 6 figures. And so, I had a great team that looked at this stuff, but I wanted to dig into it because something didn't smell right. And the excuse was, it's a labor shortage, inflation, you know how it is. And I don't accept excuses because I can't pass that on to my customers and owners and shareholders. So I asked the question, and that's how I found out, wow, not only is it hard to get the labor to these organizations, but the ones they do have are leaving at an alarming rate. And so that was the first issue. The second issue is, well, why are they leaving? And so as I came up with the idea for Jets MRO, I surveyed, actually asked hundreds of mechanics, what do they want in a business? Why would they be jumping around? And the feedback was astonishing. And now there's published feedback with MBAA about this. But people like me, leadership assumed it was just pay, just increase their pay, and then that's why they're leaving. Well, the feedback I got was they had issues with culture, engaged leadership, benefits and schedule. So pay wasn't even in the top four of the issues that caused mechanics to jump around. And so it was kind of simple in my head. I'm like, great, I can start an MRO because obviously there's a huge amount of demand and lack of capacity in the business jet MRO market. But two, I can fix the turnover problem by addressing those things and creating a business fresh to do that. And so we did that by giving every employee here free family benefits day one. And part of the business belongs to all our employees. So we do profit sharing. Now we have to grow the business to get there. But it's already carved out. There's a placement already there. So it's clear it's not an idea, it's in place. And I present financials to all of our employees once a month, like shareholders. So they're aware of the business. And my idea was that's the best way to engage them, is to give them all the information financially and strategically what's going on with the business, just like I know. And so they know what I know. They can ask tough questions. They can disagree with things. I think that fostered, and we're young, a great culture of engagement that addressed those issues. And the result has been recruiting has been the least of our worries. While I think it's close to being the number one issue for most maintenance companies, it's the least of our worries. Our pipeline is so robust and long that for me, the results of investing in those things that the mechanics told us were important to them has yielded fruit, because the experience we've already hired, staffing it 7 days a week, even weekends, I've been blown away by how fast we've done that, because my biggest concern was we're a new name. People may not want to take a risk on a newer company and leave their nice position at an airline or another MRO. But wow, I've been shocked at how the story of what we're trying to address by putting the mechanic number one has resonated. And like I said, we had to slow down recruiting. So recruiting the least of our worries. Now it becomes our challenges, getting our name out there and being more sales oriented to share our story of what we're building, share the mechanics and the experience they have, and get planes here for them to work on.
And do you feel like the strategy of giving part ownership, of creating that as part of what you do, does that create more of like a business owner mindset in the technicians themselves? So rather than just looking at this as, hey, this is the job I'm going to be at for the next 2 years, 3 years until somebody pays me $5 more an hour, whatever it might be. Do you feel like that? What kind of impact has that had? Is it, what are you seeing, and what are some of the things that you're seeing that maybe you didn't expect from doing that?
Well, I think two big things is in aviation, I don't find as progressive as other industries. So ideas like sharing financials or giving employees ownership, these are new ideas and they make people very nervous. It's things that haven't been done in the past. And so where I learned the most out of this was in a previous business I grew with my brother, Raj. We introduced this idea, but it took a long time to implement it. And the results for me were amazing. To actually, share financials. So like taking that leap of, okay, we're going to share, they're going to know how much money we're making. Sure, they don't know payroll, but they knew net profit. They knew the whole P&L down. Was a leap of faith. But I really believe as leaders and owners, sometimes we say, okay, the employees don't understand why we're stressed or where we're coming from when we make decisions, limit spending, or do certain things. Well, how awesome would it be if they had all the information to align that point of view? And that was the point of sharing financials. The ownership part too was, well, to get them to understand, how important it is to be efficient, whether it's labor hours or use of money. It needs to be everyone's money. And so the incorporation of profit sharing and different bonus mechanisms that tie them to like net profit or operating metrics directly was nerve-wracking because no one had really done it. It was really nervous for people around us, but it yielded a lot of fruit. So that's where I learned how awesome it could be. And so as a new business, it was a no-brainer to do it day one. And I had no reservations sharing it, sharing information day one. And it's yielded so much fruit because now they understand, why does Suresh look like he hasn't slept in 2 days? Oh, he's stressed out because we're building a new business and we don't have enough airplanes, or we didn't, execute as efficiently as we wanted. And so it's really, in the industry, one of the big other problems is I don't think we're objectively measured enough. Whereas, my background from the airline world is, MROs and airlines, we have numbers. We know what's a good day and a bad day. In the biz jet world, I would argue there's no numbers. I ask people, like, how do you know that was a good experience or not? It's literally a feel. And so I like being numbers driven. At the end of the day, a P&L is a great scoreboard, I call it, 'cause I like to bring sports into business. And so having that clearly aligns everyone from top to bottom with, are we doing good as a team? Are we winning or losing? And it's as simple as that. And if we're losing, why? And what do we need to address and do better? And so it's yielded phenomenal alignment. It's neat because our employees and team members are aware of what's going on top to bottom. They don't have to wonder. And so I always find the more information they can know, the better for the business. So to answer the question a long-winded way, it's been phenomenal. I would never not do it. And I always look for ways to share more. And that's why I always ask questions when I do my monthly all team meetings. What am I missing? What do you want to know that you don't know about? Because there's so much that goes on month to month in a growing business.
So in this way, you're putting out that information so they at least have the base of what they need to know. They might not necessarily know all the details of the back end of the business, why this is happening, but from a high level, you're setting basically the P&L as, here's where we need to go, here are the targets that we need to hit from a high level. As a team, are we hitting them? And then you can work your way down into the details of, okay, why is this not performing at the level? Or why is this successful? And people can start to ask questions from a basis of reality and being part of the team, not just a because I said so, and that's why we're doing it. So
yeah,
when,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree 100%. I think you have to be numbers driven. You know, one of our 5 values is know your numbers. Like, we got to know our numbers, even if they're assumed numbers, to make decisions. It can't be like, we're busy, we need to hire someone. Okay, well, how many hours do we have booked? What are we short? How does it look for next month? Let's use numbers to justify decisions, even if they're assumptions. Let's be wrong on those assumptions. But driving a culture of being numbers driven is important internally as well as externally. I don't want customers to judge us on how they felt things went. I like to hold us accountable to on-time performance and budget. And if we're on time, I think that's an A+ performance, and no excuses, whether on time or not. And I think that's really important. I think it's lacking in the business jet space. It's, if you ask folks, it's a lot of it is, how do you feel the experience went? And that's really hard when you think about this. This is a business on both ends. To manage a business on feelings and a subjective framework is very dangerous and not accurate usually. I mean, history has proven that. So I'm trying to really force the objective way of thinking. And if we do bad, objectively we did bad, it's obvious, and we have some things to work on.
Okay, and so looking at that performance metric, were we on time or were we not? It's pretty cut and dry. It's basically a pass-fail type thing, so it's easy enough to look at. And ultimately, you do want to make things good for the technicians, but in order to have the business be successful, you're looking at it as part of the industry is broken, where people are coming in, operators are coming in, they're looking for maintenance, they want it done on time, they want it done on budget. But because the employee turnover, that's a big reason that's driving those delays. So I guess just to ask bluntly is, are you seeing this process that you put in place, is it allowing you to meet those on-time performance metrics? Obviously, nothing's perfect. Things pop up. This is not like a gotcha thing. But with this in place, are you seeing things move closer to more consistent on-time performance, more consistent budget? What's been the end result for the customer that you're seeing?
So I have a favorite quote, and it's actually in one of my plaques in my office. And I tell people this, and they probably get annoyed that I say, there's no asterisks in this life, only scoreboards. And what that means is, in maintenance, I find that there's always an excuse. The part had a delay. It's the OEM's fault, and it's external vendor's fault. There's always a reason why we're late. I saw this as an operator. I'm like, there's so many reasons. And I'm like, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It doesn't work in the airline world. You're either on time or you're not. And so the way we've held ourselves accountable on time performance is, if it's a longer term project, which we have defined, and we do this all in writing, we share it with the customer. I think the transparency piece is what's missing. Is I may tell people may hear it's a part issue, but it could be 10 other issues. I'll explain how open we are, and we have to live with the good and bad of that. If it's within 5 days of the due date for the aircraft, we have until then to ask for more time for a very good technical reason. A part delay, late finding, significant finding. Because in inspections, if it goes great, that's easy. But when you find stuff, it could be a very complex solution, and I can appreciate that. But we have a 5-day rule. And then if it's within that 5 days, we can't delay it. If we go past our due date, we actually discount our invoice. So now we're held accountable to really be strategic with the customer's airplane, and we're going to penalize ourselves because that doesn't happen in the industry. There's a reason why it's late, and we're telling the operator, too bad, so sad. This is what happened, not our fault. That's all I hear is it's someone else's fault. I'm like, well, what's the accountability to that? And I think if we can really drive that internally, will be great. Now, how do I do that without putting a ton of pressure on the poor mechanics? Well, our mechanics here, so our leads and our GM, they're all AMPs with a ton of experience in the business jet market. Like I said, we've recruited really well. They're the actual ones that quote the project, budget, and timeline. So there's no salespeople, there's no customer service rep, there's no buffer between the production floor, the people touching the airplane, and the customer, owner, operator. And that's different. And that's something I'm very passionate about. And what that does is the people touching the plane, which are the mechanics who really is the product for the business, they're the ones telling the customer how long something should take and how much it should be based off hours and a rate. It's totally transparent and simple. And because we're doing that, it's the best success for accuracy on that timeline. It's not that Suresh, the operator, said you have to do it in 2 weeks. It's the guys who have to then do the work are now picking their own timelines. Therefore, it's the best chance for success for on-time performance, in my opinion, when the technical people that do the work are the ones giving the information on budget and timeline. So that's one thing I think. Go ahead.
And just to piggyback off that, do you feel like it does facilitate a good sales process where the customer feels like, hey, I'm being understood. I know how long this is going to take. So on one aspect of that, and then just from the business sense of pipeline is always a critical component. Sales pipeline is always a critical component of any business. Like, the revenue is the lifeblood that keeps things moving. So I'm just curious, at some point I want to talk about what is that like, and does that pose any challenges having something separate from a traditional sales force, call it, or what's kind of the change or the differences you see?
So the biggest difference is, I think, transparency and trust. I'm trying to rebuild that with the owner-operator. Right now, It's no fault to sales teams. It's just the way business was done. But I like to do things differently. I think there's room for disruption there. So I don't blame the traditional way it was done. But when you look at it, it's a sales team disconnected from the production floor. It's not the folks at the end of the day, if they commit to a week or whatever it is, are on the floor touching the airplane or here in a weekend or spending the overtime. So they're not as vested. They're incentivized to sell more. They're tied, just like a dealership, like with cars, they're tied to sell more. And I don't like that environment because the outcome right now is there's distrust with the quoting process, because then folks will discount an inspection to get the plane there and be open about it. Just get the plane here. I'm going to cut this other MRO, and there's some negative sales tactics that go on to win the airplane over and then make the money off the findings later. It's very untrustworthy. And so my issue with that is, all right, how do we professionalize that and make it simple? And I think the best way is technician to the owner operator. I'm not even involved. I may bring the customer or try to help with marketing, but I don't quote any projects. Our GM, our leads, our technicians commit to timelines, and I support them and have to defend their timeline so they don't get rushed. And what that's going to do is make it the best chance to be on time when you get that type of input. And your accuracy on budget and timeline from the people that actually have to do the work is going to be far better than having multiple buffers. So I think, again, the direct plug to the production floor is going to be a huge change. But the current sales process is 100% broken. It's not trustworthy. Quotes are being compared, because most people go and get 3 or 4 quotes from different MROs. They're not comparable. They're hard to understand. And the person who has to manage a quote has to audit the quote, audit the invoice, because there's no trust in what's happening in between. So I'm trying to restore a little trust by having the direct information from the floor. And even our updates, our project updates come direct from the lead on the airplane. And we have a system that reports direct from timesheets how many hours were clocked in from check-in to check-in. And so it's not me saying we worked 100 hours on your project this week, but next week we pulled people off it was 20 hours. I can't screen bad information, And I love that. So good or bad, our guys have to share it because it's automated. And the customer in the long term hopefully can appreciate that. They're actually seeing true progress direct from a system, not me looking at a system, digesting the information and selling it and saying, hey, it was a part issue where I really knew it was also maybe a labor issue. It can be both. And so that transparency, I think, will be huge and hopefully appreciated in the long run.
Yeah, because I think what a lot of people look for from a customer perspective is, I just want to know what's happening. I want to know the truth. I want to know why this is happening versus I call somebody and I maybe get 2 or 3 different answers, or somebody doesn't get back to me. Like, just tell me
Or
what's going on.
they have to send people over. I've talked to a ton of operators who are like, whether it's a pre-purchase inspection or anything timeline sensitive, there's distrust in the information getting to them. They've had to send people over there. They have a rep on site, like basically a chaperone. And then they have to micromanage the invoice. And that the normal way it's being done right now is micromanaging it till you have confidence in what's happening. And then the result is, too, I ask, well, how do you know that's successful, micromanaging it? Well, I feel like things are going well. So, there's the objective part and the fact that they have to do that is mind-blowing to me. And so I think being fully transparent and saying, look, this is what went wrong. Maybe we did pull 2 guys off your plan to go work in AOG. Well, I can't hide that. It's going to tell you how many hours we worked from check-in to check-in. But I think also setting the expectation up front. So I'm a big process guy. So we actually have a one-page document, and I share this with customers of, if your project is 2 weeks plus, here's when you'll get your check-ins, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, because we work weekends normally. And they can ask for something else as their customer, but so far they've been like, oh, this is great. I know exactly what day I'm getting a check-in and by what time and what's in the check-in. And we offer like a FaceTime walk around if they want to see the airplane, more pictures, so that before the project starts, they never have to then ask, hey, are we still good for our RTS date? Are we still good on here? They know the expectation. So far, no one's even asked for more than we've provided in terms of you'll get a check-in 3 times a week by this time, and this is what's in it. They've loved it because now they get it.
Cool. And then maybe offline, I want to ask you how we can help facilitate that too as well and make that easier for you guys. But one question, so it seems like an interesting concept for a business. It's a different way of running it than what you're seeing in the industry. Basically, you're assessing and saying, hey, I see this process is broken in enough places, especially as you ran a fleet of 40 or 50 aircraft. You're interacting with shops big and small, I'm sure, all over the country. So this isn't like a one-time thing that you've seen. So are people reaching out, whether they own their own MRO business or maybe they're just running AOG at this phase as they're trying to build it up? Has anybody reached out to you to ask you, like, hey, how are you building this? How have you set this up? What are some things that I can do? Like, has that been an interest to anybody in the industry so far?
Yes. And so I grew up in this world. My dad was a Concorde mechanic. He had a repair station. I grew up summers in the repair station. My brother Rod started a company called AQRD that I joined, and we grew a repair station engineering company together. So I've been along maintenance with my older brother and growing up with my dad all my life. So, the maintenance world is home for me. So there's a lot of relationships in that. And then I do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and I advise, acquirers, and that's my finance brain that I love to stay engaged with, because we acquired a business in South Florida that does component repair on engine and APU parts. So I like to talk to other owners because, once upon a time, I've tried to buy businesses too. I've been in that world, and I thought technical owner and operators of aviation businesses, a challenge there was financial acquirers actually getting deals done because these owner operators, there was not alignment. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm an owner operator, but I'm a finance guy. And I found it was really easy to talk to owners because I've been one of them. I've started a business, I've grown it. And so from an acquisition standpoint, I've maintained a lot of those relationships. So people ask me for advice on the M&A side and or the MRO side of how we do things. And I think the most important thing I learned from my family is relationships are super important, and aviation is a very small industry. And the way I foster that is, even before I opened Jets MRO, I actually reached out to the leadership of many of the big MROs in the Dallas area and nationally and said, look, I'm starting an MRO. It's not to compete with you directly. I just want to do things differently. Most of them were super appreciative. Half of them were like, well, why would you tell me that? I'm like, because I'm not trying to chase your people, but if your people apply, I'll let you know if we hire them. And I want it to be super professional, but I wanted to maintain the relationships because the MRO space, I think the capacity is still very scarce. And so there's enough work for everyone. And I'm very, not just transparent to our customer and our employees, but to quote unquote competitors. I love meeting and talking to them. I'm very open about what we're doing. And I find that just fostering those good relationships, you probably don't see a lot because most people are like, well, why are you telling the other MRO how you're doing things? I'm like, it's just so much work for everyone. And if people pick up on things of how to treat mechanics better and do things differently, that's a bigger impact than Jets MRO ever thinking they're going to grow into like a 50-state MRO and change the entire industry alone. I need to share perspective with that of how we can do things better for people. And if that improves how people treat people across the board, even if I don't get the business, I mean, I think that's something I could look back on and be a lot more proud of if MROs as a whole just make a little improvement based off something we did at Jets MRO.
For sure. Well, and on that front, so something tactical for the owners that want to implement some of these things, whether maybe if you can share something of what should they look for when they go to implement, employee ownership, if they go to implement more of these full-time benefits, go to, implement some of these changes. Is there anything tactical you can give them either on one of those specifics, or maybe it's something that they need to change holistically, like as a business owner? Not everybody runs their books properly, and I'm sure you saw that on the M&A side of, I'm going to sell this business and this is my savings investment, and it's like, you don't even keep books. So nobody's going to buy this for $20 million. They'll give you $500,000 for it. And it's a wake up call to people. So I guess just tactically, is there something that you would recommend if people want to implement some of these things that you're doing? Like, where should they start?
Yes, there is. And because I don't want to act like I know all the answers. Look, I'm in a new startup business, and I'm not saying everything I'm doing is right. But hopefully I'm doing more right than wrong, and I'm okay trying things that don't work, right? One is you got to be open to failing, and I want to take a loss here or there because that's the best way to learn. Again, I love sports and business, and if you're too scared to take a shot and miss it, you're not going to learn and be different and get better. So don't be afraid to do things that don't work or make you feel silly. But I think the biggest thing is ask your team. Like, this doesn't happen enough. I don't just know that I'm going to do these things that we talked about today and think like I can write a book about it. I look at every business differently, whether it's a 1,200 person team that I've had before or a startup like that I'm in now. I ask the team, what do they want to see? And you build a leadership team. And so I think the biggest thing for owners to do is don't just start doing things because you heard me say it on a podcast. Actually ask your team, what are the biggest challenges, and make it simple. We don't need to list 10. We like 2 challenges a month, and we want to tackle them well, and then we'll move on to the next ones. Ask them what they want to see. Do they want to see financials? What happens if the old team says, we don't care, we rather you fix our benefits or our schedule? Well, good. Don't share the financials. Put your effort into fixing those things. So I think the biggest thing is communicating with your team. But the hard thing is, have you create a culture where they can actually speak and tell you what they're actually thinking? Because the turnover issue is people look for a job before they leave, and then what kind of employee were they when they were looking for a job and were upset? And so think about that. Are your people actually happy, and are they telling you what they really think? And if you can get them to tell you what they really think, well, then you can cultivate what to do with your business to change or get to that next level so much easier. And so the roadmap is within the business. That's what I really think.
And how did you learn this mindset? Like for you to approach a business this way, to approach leadership this way, where does that come from?
I learned the hard way. When I was a younger leader, like in my 20s, I've had a great opportunity, and I owe this to my brother Raj, bringing me into his business and helping grow that. I got to be a leader and manage people, much more experienced than me at a very young age. I didn't do things right, and I was very naive. And back then, I think the way I learned to do this was I thought you just lead by managing. You just say, we're going this way and all follow me. And that's not how it works, especially if you're younger and you have folks around you that have more experience. I need to lean on other people that are smarter than me. And I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I just want to be the best coach and supporter. And so I think the way I learned was man, people were leaving me, and I just, the aviation industry is notorious for like, great, next man up or woman, and we'll just rehire. And I'm like, why are people leaving? And it was because of how I was approaching my leadership style and how I pushed, not understanding someone else's point of view. And so now I take a lot of time to understand other people's point of view in the business or even outside before I jump to a conclusion or reaction. And again, I have to be open-minded to always learning that I was wrong. And I think that was something I didn't have in my younger career. So I learned through hardships and losing a lot of good people because I just didn't understand.
Yeah, sometimes it's unfortunately brutal, but you got to go through those pieces. Like, back in the flight docs days, there were plenty of times where I was pushing to get certain projects done, do all these kind of things, getting some feedback, but I thought I knew the right answer, and I really didn't. And you end up doing a lot of extra work. You end up pushing people off, and unfortunately, you have to learn the hard way. But I think the key thing is that you actually learn from it versus continuing the same mistake nonstop, which you do see happen to quite a few people. So going to Jets MRO now, I guess just before we wrap up, can you tell me a little bit about Jets MRO? When did you guys start? How many technicians do you guys have now? And where's the business heading?
Yeah. So we opened a couple months ago. We are new. Can you hear me okay? Because I think my mic went back to my laptop. Just wanted to make sure.
Yep, I can hear you now. We're all good.
Awesome. So we literally started touching aircraft 2 months ago, but Q4 of last year is when I raised capital because I didn't want to bootstrap the startup. So I invested, got awesome backers, and I wanted to scale this professionally. So, I wanted to be a professional business jet MRO first, and I wanted to do things like take care of our people from day one, not have ideas that took us a lot of growth to get there, right? And so, we're very new as a brand, but the coolest thing was, again, the recruiting part. Having the fact that we're staffed 7 days a week already. And this was done 2 months ago. Our team has done a phenomenal job from our HR and recruiting to our GM. We have been able to recruit a ton of experience to work on business jets, where that was my biggest concern. So that's been interesting how fast that worked, because we're way ahead of that experience curve. And now it's an awareness curve. I think our biggest challenge is, all right, how do I tell our story of what we're trying to fix by being on time, being open 7 days a week, and having over a century of experience as our biggest differentiators. And look, we are treating our mechanics better. So the same team that touched your airplane in January, if they're still here in December, which is my goal, obviously, think of how efficient we're going to get, right, at your process, because a lot of our customers are fleet operators. So they have kind of a professional system and expectation, and the more we do work with them, the faster we get. Like, how efficient can we get for these operators? It's what I would have wanted as an operator. So I think our point of view as an operator for operators is different. It's not just we're fixing aircraft, right? The biggest problem we're fixing is treating mechanics better. And so, Jets MRO, again, we're moving into a new 40,000 square foot, brand new state-of-the-art MRO facility in August, which I'm excited about. We have hangar space right now at Dallas Executive Airport, which is the closest airport to downtown Dallas. It's 10 minutes away from Love Field. So it's a super unknown, secret executive airport here in Dallas that I'm glad I found. I didn't know much about a year ago. But the new facility is awesome for our team, because most hangars in the North Texas area and most MRO hangars are a degree of old, or they're retrofitted transient aircraft hangar. Well, this was built for an MRO, so it's got engine hoists built in. It's semi-air conditioned, so I think of my technicians in the summer and in the winter, we have heaters. Like they got to basically, on the blueprint, build this for an MRO, and super neat. You'll be able to tell it's got a view of downtown. It gets great airflow, and so it gets hot in Dallas. And those, I think I get to work in an office, but they have to do the hard work on the floor. It's going to be super awesome when we move in there and they get to go visit. They're super stoked because it's set up so nicely for them to have air-conditioned offices, but pop out to the floor that's semi-air-conditioned and not be dying of heat, and be able to work on aircraft and having tools and equipment around them to do major MRO stuff on any size aircraft. I think that's very exciting for them, because it's not a old hangar that we're trying to make professional. It's going to be a nice, fresh start the way they wanted it. So we're 2 months into it. The guys are staying pretty busy. Again, our biggest challenge is getting our name out there, and hopefully the story of our team, most important than anything, is kind of why people choose us and continue to choose us. Being able to talk to the mechanic, like while we're on this call, I got a text saying, "Hey, I need a quote for this," and all I do is forward it to our GM. So our mechanics get to look at that stuff and go, "Hey, we can fit you in on this day, and we can put 4 mechanics on the airplane, and here's our hourly rate." And I love the transparency, because the owner is probably going, or the operator is like, "I'm not used to this. I'm used to trying to look at these quotes." And so I'm slowly seeing people actually appreciate how different we are. But it's also like they have to ask the question, like, did you really just tell me how many technicians you're putting on for how many hours? Am I really talking to the guy touching my airplane? Like, it's almost, so far they don't believe it. But it's working, because we're doing a bunch of heavy checks on Challengers, Citations, Learjets right now. And the owners are loving that direct access and the cadence. And we have our challenges. We were late on a project. We discounted the invoice. We didn't meet our own objective metrics, and the operator didn't even expect it. But I love that this is all new to a lot of the customers, and I think the word of mouth and those experiences will help us grow, because we're doing it differently, consistently, and professionally with full transparency. And so I'm hoping that snowballs, right?
Okay.
All these things are great, but if it doesn't snowball, then I didn't do my job, and maybe the industry doesn't care, but I think they will, and I think they'll appreciate it long term.
So it sounds like right now, especially with the type of jets that you just mentioned and coming from your past role, it almost seems like you're aiming to be, at this stage, kind of an extension of some of these operators, these fleet operators, maintenance teams. So where they can get the heavy checks done, maybe they need some AOG stuff done in your area, things along those lines. So where are you focusing on? Like, who are the main people that you're trying to help at this stage of the company?
Well, our customer are always, it's funny, this business is built for mechanics. Our customer is a mechanic. Our customers are maintenance managers and DOMs, usually of fleets or multiple aircraft or even one aircraft. They're the ones we're trying to give an option to, and we want to be the extension of their MRO. Most fleet operators would love to control their own maintenance. Most 135s, to be different, have to figure out a way to do maintenance differently, or else why do people put the airplane to manage it with them if they're just shopping the same quotes, the same MROs, and saying, well, we'll manage it or micromanage it the best? No, I think what's coming on the horizon is, can you find a true MRO partner? And that's what I want to do for a lot of these fleet operators is partner with them. Think of a cost plus model where it's like, here's my rate, here's how many technicians we have. If we can be an extension of your MRO and objectively be on the hook for performing, and if we do good, you do good, then I think that's how I'll change and give the charter operator a different flavor to introduce to their customer, managed fleet or not. That's different. Right now, again, they're just shopping it. They go to the 4 different MROs, they get a quote, and they micromanage it. And that's old school. What's new school is, can you build a partnership where they objectively have SLAs and objective criteria to perform? And if they do, then they benefit from it. If they don't, they get penalized. And so I'm hoping that helps build into true partnerships with some of these fleet operators. And so now they have an arm's length extension MRO, and that's how they do things differently. That's an introduction of a new idea for them to do things differently. And I think that will be huge for them as all these charter fleets are growing at an exponential rate. They're basically starting to turn into airlines in its own subset. Mm-hmm. And we need to make sure we keep up on the aftermarket MRO side by being progressive and changing, because the infrastructure still isn't there. It's very fragmented in the MRO space. So I'm hoping we're a step in the right direction to help the Part 135 charter fleet, private jet owner operator operate like an airline, because they're flying every day. We know demands are up the roof, and we need to keep up with that infrastructure and back end. Okay. That, and we're finding a lot of asks for pre-purchase inspections, and the fact that we have flexibility and capacity and we work weekends, that has been kind of a separate segment for brokers, being able to trust us to put your airplane into a pre-purchase inspection in a timely fashion.
Interesting. All right. And then, so what are the services that you're offering now? And then once you have this new hangar, what are you capable of offering?
So, right now in our current hangar, we have a certain amount of maintenance slots, and the new hangar will be able to triple that capacity. So it gives us capacity, but capability-wise, right now we do all scheduled maintenance on light to mid-sized jets. We'll do large cabin in the new hangar. Right now we're working on a ton of Citations, Learjets, Challengers, Hawkers. premieres. I mean, all the business jet stuff, our guys have so much good experience on it. And we do drop-in stuff, so line maintenance, AOG stuff. Our normal hours right now, and eventually we'll go to 24/7, is Monday through Sunday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we find that because we're open on the weekends, we can do scheduled maintenance with 2 extra days in a week, as well as we're here, staff, no on-call. I hated the word on-call and trying to call someone from their house to help support drop-in work or saying we're 24/7 on-call. I just won't do it. So I staff our team. They know what their workday is, and then when they're off, I'll leave them alone. That's important to our mechanic team for work-life balance. And so I think the scheduled drop-in, especially on the weekends being staffed, is a huge value add. We do pre-purchase inspections, and so our team's pretty versatile. So pre-purchase inspections, scheduled maintenance, drop-in, so standard MRO stuff. We do have partnerships with some different companies in-house here locally, because I know we can't do everything day one. For instance, we have a cleaning company called Immaculate Flight. They clean every aircraft inside and out on our dime before an airplane leaves. Simple things like that to make the experience a little more positive. And then if folks need interior work, we partnered with a company called ACI Interiors here locally. If they need avionics work, we partner with Spirit Aeronautics. What that means is when most people ask, hey, if I wanted something outside of your depth, like an avionics upgrade or you troubleshooting this, most MROs, either they're bigger and they can do it in-house, which is great. We're small and new. Or they say, oh yeah, we have vendors for that. I wanted to take it a step further and build partnerships, because a lot of these awesome vendors would be great partners. And my criteria was I wanted it to be an owner-run business, so I could call the owner and have that support, not just be another number on the docket, because we're a new smaller business. And I wanted a formal partnership where the discounts I get for going to them, first, I want to pass on to our customer, so our customer gets a cheaper product from that line of service because they use Jets MRO. And then we can be a one-stop shop as well, so they don't have to manage multiple vendors. And so we're trying to add that extra kind of, customer service side to the business, where it's easier for the operator to put an airplane here and get multiple things done without managing it all separately.
Got it. Yeah, we're noticing the partnership route, even on the software side, is going to be huge, and we're starting to identify those companies that we're going to work with. And really, it does allow us to, I don't know if you're seeing this too, but it does allow us to give a more holistic view of our customers' operation, where they need help, versus just looking at it solely. What can we do? What can we make money on? Okay, we can help you with XYZ. ABC is out of our depth. Here's a reliable person that we work with. I trust this person here. Get in touch with them. They're going to take care of you. I think we're starting to see that even in our own business, and there's a few people bubbling up that we're getting in place to do that. But it's critical.
You know what's hard to do? It's hard for people to say they can't do something. And that's we went back to the sales issue. Is I think good sales is saying I don't know or I can't do that, and no one says that. Again, I don't want to ever be the smartest person in the room. Like when I go down the floor and I ask the guys what they're doing, I just told them they're working on they're building a harness for something, a wire harness, and I'm a structures guy. I'm more comfortable in that space, but I have no clue what you're doing. That looks really hard, and I'm like, why can't we do it to the customer? Where they ask a question, I think our sales mentality is just get it here. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe say I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. That's not our expertise. I think, again, that transparency and honesty is missing from our industry. And so we're be open about what you can't do, and you won't disappoint the customer. The worst thing is, we can figure that out. They come here and we don't execute. That happens a lot. It's just get the plane here is the mentality. I think that's sales driven, because that's the incentive, is get the plane here and sell stuff. And once the plane's here, there's a small chance they're able to patch it up and take it anywhere else, so you're stuck. And so we're very open about what we can't do, especially as a young company. There's been some aircraft where they said, can you fix this? And I go, no, we don't have tooling for that, or we didn't invest in that yet. You don't want to bring that here. Or I tell them, look, it's going to take us probably 2 weeks, but it could take another shop 1 week. But if you can live with that, great. But I just want to be upfront that we're not as experienced in this set of aircraft or that check. And so we're very open about what we don't know, and I wish more people took that tact.
Got it. Well, Suresh, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. And where can people get in touch with you?
Just go to jetsmro.com. There's a direct way to email us. There's a live chat that someone in the office is on at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Sometimes it's me. I find people sometimes don't always want to call and talk to people, so we try to create frictionless. Or hop on our LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We're on all of them, sharing as much as we can about our people, what airplanes we're working on, hangar, and hot topics in the industry. Again, we want to influence change and do things differently, not just be another MRO. And we really want to put the mechanic forefront. So I think you'll see a lot of our team out and about in the social universe, but hoping we can be a resource for everyone out there. And even if people have what-if questions, I mean, it costs nothing to drop a quote to us that you would drop to 10 other MROs. It's just a different look. So I would say leverage what we're trying to do differently to maybe hold the industry honest and get a different take on how things could be as the industry grows and matures a little bit.
Got it. And we'll include your info in the show notes and everything like that. But Suresh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the time.